What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. So today we're gonna do a tips with Tish. A little bit of a different setting. We are not on the golf course this time. However, we are at Fixed Body Group, which has been my life savior. And right beside me is Dr. Wagg, and I can say so many awesome things about him. He's been helping me through my hip injury. For those of you who follow me on, Instagram and TikTok, you've been seeing my journey of just trying to get better. I recently just had PRP. We've been doing a lot of active release techniques, a lot of different workouts to help get me through to be able to swing. And so today for this Tips with Tish, we wanted to talk through some stretches that can overall help your golf game as well as prevent some injury. And so I'll have Dr. Wagg talk a little bit about Fixed Body Group, what they have to offer, and the stretches we're going to do today.
Thank you so much. That was really well said. In our office, ultimately, we help you create that environment for healing for your body. When Tish came to us, a couple different injuries going on with the hips from a significant impact as well as some compensations that build up. And that happens with all of us. So if you've been on the golf course and you had that little injury, maybe hurt your back that one day, that's gonna build up. Our body has to compensate. So when we work with our clients, we figure out what's happened in the past and then kind of unravel that and work backwards, help them build strength around it. So really combine the hands-on approach of chiropractic, massage, and personal training, as well as the medical part with regenerative medicine. So really giving people what they need. So the other part that's a huge piece of that is prevention. So educating our patients on what they can do and what they are doing that's making things worse. So those stretches that we'll go over today is going to help avoid some common things that Tish sees as a golfer and I see as a provider. So some low back pain, and a lot of times what creates that or leads to it is immobility or lack of mobility through the hips.
Perfect. Thanks, Dr. Wagg, for that little intro and what we're about to do today. So let's get to it.
This first stretch we're gonna do, unfortunately, it doesn't have a sexy name. This is just a standing adductor stretch. So your adductors are the big muscles on the inside of the leg that bring your knees together. When these muscles get really tight, it doesn't allow you to move your leg internally. So in our golf swing, that doesn't allow for that rotation. When this doesn't happen and we're not rotating here, so if Tish is frozen and she can't rotate at all through her hips, she has to generate all of that rotation in her low back. That also means that her low back has to slow her down in her swing. And that's what creates a lot of damage in that musculature. We need to use that mobility in the hips so we can prevent injury as well as maximize your swing. So you can get more power and you can be more efficient.
Awesome. Okay, so how do we start?
So to start, you're going to use something for Tish. We're just above, knee height here. Okay. You can go a little higher, a little lower. So if you're really immobile, you're probably going to start a little lower. If you're more advanced, we can go a little higher. Okay. But Tish is going to be facing forward, and whatever you're stretching on is going to be out to what's going to be our left side to start. So let's bring your leg up. We're going to set her foot so her toes are going straight up. Okay. Her body is still facing straight forward. So front foot going straight forward and her toe on the leg that's stretching is straight up. With her right hand, we're going to reach up towards the sky, keeping the body forward and arch over. So Tish should feel a nice stretch kind of coming down from the elbow through the tricep side of the body. She's keeping the body squared up here and just reaching as far as she can. So Tish can tell you that she feels a bit of a stretch through the leg, in the hamstring, in the adductor, and we're also getting a nice stretch through this compartment here. So just under your ribs and the top of the hip, really opening up that side of the low back. So when she gets into the stretch, we're gonna hold for 20 seconds. That's your minimum. I would recommend spending about 20 to 40 seconds on the stretch. Okay. So I'd ask you to hold this for that 20 to 40 seconds, just kind of breathe through. And now we're gonna go into a little bit of a modification of the same stretch. Okay. So come out with the arm, and now we're gonna twist your body and reach towards the outside of her foot.
Now does my foot still face forward?
Yep, so the anchored foot is still forward, no change there. Now, a couple of things that we're introducing. When Tish reaches over, of course we're getting rotation through the back, but we're creating this rotation in the hip as well. on this side too.
Right.
So we're challenging that range of motion in the hips, but we're in a controlled environment here. She's reaching towards that opposite leg, creating that big stretch here. So now we're separating from the hip and the ribs, creating more of that stretch and opening up this muscle called your quadratus lumborum. It's a little rectangle, but that's what gives us that sore achiness or tightness on the outside of the back. So if you already experience that, that's a great stretch. But this is the first one we're going to use to start to decompress your spine, open up your adductors so that you can create a little bit more mobility.
Awesome.
All right, this next stretch we're going to do is called seated hip rotation. So we're going to get set up in this at the beach pose, sitting back with our hands supporting our weight. I'm going to go to the left to start. So we're going to drop both of your legs out. So my left knee hits the ground, right knee hits the ground. Now I'll take my right arm, rotate through your low back, and reach through the hole that's created between your arm and low back. Now you'll come out of the stretch, go back to that start position, switch legs, reach over, and go through. So the first couple times, you're gonna move at a little bit of a tempo, and as this feels better, you can get further into the stretch and actually use your arm to create some rotation. So if I'm warmed up, now I can drop through and really use my arm to push and create a little more rotation. So the stretch helps to create mobility in the hips by rotating both ways, as well as create that rotation in the low back at the same time. So now we're gonna see Tish go through the exercise as I talk her through it.
This is like a Spider-Man stretch that I can't say I've done really ever until this second. So here we go.
She was this many days old.
I was this many days old when I learned this. Okay, does it matter how far apart?
No, but we do want to give ourselves at least shoulder width, and then you can go a little bit further if you need to. So if you have a hip injury where it's painful when you're dropping it, going a little wider might help you work around it. But outside of that, let's start off with shoulder width, maybe a little bit further.
Okay, all right, and then we drop both.
So try to get the inside of the knee on the ground, outside of the knee on the ground.
Okay.
Perfect. Now she's going to take that arm, reach through. So now she's creating that nice rotation, similar to what we did on that standing stretch. Now let's come out, take that arm out and around. Good. Legs follow, drop, drop. Perfect. So now as we go back, we can start to get a little wider with your hand position. So reach a little wider for me. Good. And now, so if we want to get more spinal, she can drop the shoulder.
Really drop.
Exactly. So give yourself a little more space there.
Okay.
Good. So you can kind of tailor this exercise to yourself. If you have a little bit more of a hip issue, you can keep yourself up a little taller, so you're really forcing the stretch here and getting motion in the hip. If you want to get more mobility through the mid-back, you can use more of this, reaching out wide, like Tish did the last rep, and this one to get more mobility through the mid-back.
I like this one a lot.
So if on your swing, maybe you struggle with getting that rotation through the mid-back to start with, or you find that you're suffering with low back pain, maybe you feel this after you play a couple games in a row, because you start to build up some tension in the hips, in the legs. This is a great stretch to create some of that mobility.
And so how many times would you recommend someone do the stretch?
So for a stretch like this, I would probably do about 20 reps. Like I said, I would start slow in the beginning, so maybe do 10 really slow and intentional, and then just kind of build up pace for a little bit. And maybe on those last 10, that's when you try to get a little more depth and rotation with the mid-back.
I like it.
All right, the last stretch we're gonna do is a standing glute stretch. So I'm gonna show this first, and then Tish is gonna demo.
All right.
So what you're gonna do, typically I might go something a little bit higher than this, but you're gonna bring your leg up and kind of lie that out in front of you. Other one is positioned behind me. I'm gonna dip my butt back so we can create a lot of motion here. Rotation. So using my other hand, I'm pinning my knee down at the table, and now I'm just gonna drop back, try to put as much weight as I can into my butt. So sinking back. This is a great stretch to really force the rotation in the hip. So if you really struggle to create mobility, especially if those first two stretches were tough for you, this is a good one to create a lot of this rotation. So let's go ahead and have you set up for this.
Okay.
Good, yep, so create a little bit of space. Perfect. Now, if we can, we're gonna try to get that knee down. Using the other hand.
Oh, you like literally hold yourself. Oh my gosh, yeah, that puts way more pressure.
Good. So, Tish has her heel up. She's pretty flexible, so she's able to drop down here. She also has really good body control, so she's able to hold herself there. If you're trying to force more or get a different angle, let's go ahead and get your weight back onto your heel. Good.
And then go back.
So just kind of sink down, and from here, you'll feel that you can kind of play with the different angles of how you're forcing yourself into the hip, right? So allow yourself to kind of sink into what feels best for you. If it feels restricted, feels like that area is really tight, this stretch will kind of help you find those specific fibers that you need to release for yourself. If you can't get your knee down, so pretend this was as flexible as Tish was, she can kind of stay here and work on forcing that a little bit. So before you were this far down, I guess what I was trying to show is if you're here, you can kind of work on forcing that out and bringing yourself into it a little closer so we can build up into the stretch.
I had to even it out.
Of course, that's important.
Yeah. So I guess this is like a different way to do it. So you're saying to actually have your foot flat on the ground.
If you're less mobile, and say you can't get your knee down from this position, we can kind of force that or kind of play with bringing yourself forward more until we're able to get this all the way down.
Got it. Yep. Okay. Yeah, that is a major stretch. I'm actually not a very flexible person at all compared to my peers, I'd say. I think that's very shameful for being a golfer. But I do recommend doing these stretches often, even on a daily. If you're just an avid golfer, this can help prevent so much injury and also just help your overall swing. All right, now we're gonna take those stretches now that I've done all my reps, and we're gonna implement it into the golf swing and see how I take my swing back. So here we go. All right, I got a wedge in hand, and here we are at the top.
Yeah, so after the stretches, look at where we created mobility. Front of the hip here. Front of the hip here. So we have to allow the hip to come back. So by stretching the glutes, it really allows this to drive backwards. Less tension in the glute on this left side allows this hip to go forward. So we have to have this mobility. If we take this away from Tish, so keeping her shoulders square, if we bring that down, now if I square up our hips and we try to get more rotation, she doesn't get much there. How's that feel in your back?
Yeah, this actually brings a lot more pain to the lower back, so I do not recommend doing this. And I think that for those who are trying to open up their hips more, now that you have the mobility to do it, once you do these stretches, it does seem scary because now your swing is a lot bigger and further away from the ball. But you can actually make your swing more compact with the bigger the turn that you can create. And also for those who struggle with keeping that left arm straight on their backswing like this, when you are limiting your turn and you're still trying to finish your turn, it's really hard to maintain your radius, your left arm throughout your swing. If you are able to open up that turn, it makes it so much easier to keep that radius from beginning all the way back to impact. So many benefits to being able to open up your hips and also prevent injury for sure.
Yeah, and the other one, just watching you set that up, where you can be limited is in the knees. And we're actually going to talk about that in your next video.
Yeah, so be sure to stay tuned. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this tips with Tish. Now, Dr. Wagg, where can we find you?
You can find me in Rancho Bernardo, Mission Valley, or if you happen to be in Arizona, you can find us in Scottsdale.
And then what about your handles, social handles?
So you can find us on all social medias as Fixed Body Group.
Perfect. All right, well, that's basically it, you guys. If you like what you see, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications button so you don't miss a beat. Bye for now.